Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm sharing my full Procreate drawing process of Kirari Momobami from Kakegurui. It's a complete iPad screen recording, from the very first rough sketch all the way to the final colored portrait. Kirari has always fascinated me. She's the student council president in Kakegurui, a character who feels both elegant and terrifying at the same time. There's something about her confidence, that mix of calm control and subtle madness, that makes her unforgettable. So, when I decided to paint her, I wanted to capture that exact feeling, her composure, her dominance, that queen who's always in control aura, concept and rough sketch. At the beginning, I honestly wasn't sure what pose to use. I don't usually draw a lot of portraits, so I tried a few different ideas, different angles, hand gestures, and facial expressions. And oh, that hand gave me such a hard time. It felt like I was stuck in a loop, draw, erase, redraw, and still something looked off. Sometimes the angle was strange. Sometimes the proportion felt wrong. That single hand probably took me more time than the whole face combined. But that's what happens when one small element throws off the entire composition. If the hand looks awkward, the whole character feels wrong. Eventually, I realized something useful. When you get stuck like that, it's better to step away for a while. Do something else, take a short break, then come back with fresh eyes. You'll instantly notice where the problem is. That's one reason I started practicing gesture drawing. It trains you to see structure quickly and make confident lines without overthinking. Finally, I decided on a pose where Kirari lightly rests her hand under her chin and tilts her head upward, just a bit. That small upward angle gives her this subtle superiority, confident, elegant, slightly challenging. Once I locked in that idea, the rest of the sketch began to flow smoothly. refining the sketch and character design. Next, I moved on to refining the rough lines. I adjusted the head proportions, then started building her outfit details. Kirari's wearing the iconic student council uniform, a red and black blazer with a crisp white shirt and tie. The outfit itself already has this sense of formality and power, so I wanted the structure to feel sharp. Now, her hairstyle is what really makes her stand out. She has 2 braids on each side that wrap up and around her head, forming a kind of hair crown. It's not a bun or twin bun style, it's more like an intricate braided halo. I double-checked the direction of the braids by looking at references from both the anime and manga to make sure the pattern felt right. Once those circular braids were drawn in, the whole look clicked. That's so Kirari. Perfect, composed, but with a hint of obsession. Her blue lipstick is another thing that instantly defines her design. That cold tone against her pale skin gives her this aristocratic, slightly surreal beauty. Like she's saying, I'm not part of your world, and I don't need to be. I've always thought Kirari's design is much more striking than the protagonist's. The main girl is cute, black straight hair, simple and clean. But Kirari has layers. She's smart, elegant, manipulative, and completely confident. So in my drawing, I wanted her head slightly tilted upward, eyes looking down just a bit, as if she's observing everyone from above. That angle alone gives the piece a stronger attitude. Adjustments and line draft. After finishing the refined sketch, I still wasn't happy with the hand again. It just didn't sit right, so I redrew it once more, this time bringing it a little closer to the face. That small adjustment made the entire pose look more natural and comfortable. Then came the clean line draft. Since the rough sketch was already solid, this part went smoothly. I used thin, deliberate strokes to trace everything neatly, refining proportions and adding rhythm to the lines. When drawing the folds of her shirt, I almost over-detailed them, but then reminded myself that sometimes suggesting the texture is enough. If you capture the feeling of the fabric, you don't need to render every crease. I slightly emphasized the shoulder lines of her blazer, giving her a sharper silhouette. Just that tiny tweak added more authority to her pose. It's funny how those small structural changes can shift the entire mood of the drawing. Inking and brush experiments. The inking stage is probably my favorite part. By now, all the planning is done. It's just about bringing everything to life with clean, confident lines. I like to vary the line thickness. Heavier lines around the outer contour and lighter, softer ones around the face and features. That contrast gives the drawing depth without even adding color yet. At this stage, I also started thinking about the background. A single portrait can look too plain if the background is completely empty. So I wanted to add some subtle design elements to balance it out. I experimented with a few different Procreate brushes. Some handwritten English text textures, decorative motifs, and soft patterns. These were brushes I bought from a Taobao shop, and they're actually super handy for this kind of work. They add variety without drawing too much attention away from the main subject. Later, I used multiply mode to blend them gently into the background, so they act more like a texture than an obvious pattern. It's subtle, but it keeps the illustration from feeling flat. Coloring and lighting experiments. Now comes the most exciting part, coloring. I always start with flat base colors. Skin, hair, uniform, just to establish the overall palette first. Once the flats are in, I zoom in and check the balance of tones to make sure nothing feels off. This time I didn't want strong, dramatic shadows or lighting. Instead, I wanted a softer, unified tone where the light direction is clear but not overly contrasted. So I imagine a diagonal light source coming from the upper left, creating a gentle gradient of brightness across the face and clothes. Along the light-shadow boundary, I added a narrow highlight line, a slightly saturated edge to make her silhouette pop, especially along the hair, cheeks, and jawline. That subtle rim light gives her a sense of volume without breaking the softness. For the shadows, I lean toward bluish or cyan hues. And for the lit areas, I used a warm, slightly orange tone. That warm, cool contrast gives a natural depth while keeping harmony across the whole piece. It's not loud, but it makes the colors breathe. I also used a multiply layer to enhance vibrancy, deepening the reds of her blazer, the blacks of her collar, and the darker parts of her hair. That made everything feel richer and more cohesive. This painting was also a small experiment for me. I didn't stick to my usual coloring routine. I tried to see what would happen if I approached light and color more intuitively. I think that's what makes art fun. Every drawing is an experiment. Even if it fails, you always learn something new. But this time, I really liked how it turned out. Final touches and completion. Once the main coloring was done, I went back to add a few finishing touches. A bit of texture here, a few soft brush details there. Subtle English letters, decorative patterns, faint particles of light. You might not notice them right away, but they make the image feel more complete, less empty. I don't like my works to look too clean. A little texture gives them warmth and personality. Looking back at the final result, I realized the biggest reward wasn't having a perfect drawing, but the fact that I pushed myself to try new things, from composition to lighting, from brushwork to color tones. I experimented more than usual, and that made me grow. Closing, and that's the entire drawing process for my Kirari Momobami portrait in Procreate. It took a lot of trial and error, but also a lot of fun. Every time I struggled or changed something, I ended up understanding both the character and my own workflow a little better. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more painting processes or different characters, feel free to leave a comment and let me know who you'd like me to draw next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!